Yes, Hornets, how are we? Welcome along to WD18, the Watford fan channel with myself, Jacob Culshaw, Charlie Zazzera, as usual. Sam couldn't make it. He's still busy living his best life. I think that's the update with Sam for every single episode. But we are delighted to be joined, not a bad replacement, Sam, I'm sorry to say, with the new Watford Observer, Watford FC correspondent, Mr. Adam Drury. Now, Adam, it has been, I can imagine, a crazy first week in the job because we always say it on the channel, right? It's so busy as a fan following Watford, let alone covering it with work. So, firstly, thank you so much for giving up your time because I know you're a busy man. But number two, how has it been? And congratulations on the new role.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I was just saying to you lads before we started, I probably have been pitched into the busiest week of the summer so far in terms of it feels like 2 or 3 different transfer stories developing every day, and we had 2 matches last week. My favourite bit is the matches for sure. Like that's what I'm really excited to get stuck into, the actual season starting. So looking forward to that. But obviously all the transfer news is really important and sets up what Watford can achieve next year. But yeah, it's been great. Everything I hoped for so far.
Sorry, go on, Charlie.
Sorry, I'll just like you said about the matches. What are you going to be like in a press box when Watford are playing and a goal goes in, the 90th minute winner?
It's going to be interesting. In the press box, the last 15 minutes of the game is by far the most hectic time because I'm going to be doing the live blog and trying to get a match report done for the whistle. I actually think it might help if I feel like nerves and tension for the game to almost distract myself and be distanced from it. And if a goal goes in, then it's straight to work rather than like worrying about what it all means. I have been warned by various Watford fans who have covered Watford before that like the feeling you get inside you as a fan disappears a little bit because it becomes like a professional thing. But yeah, I actually think it might help sort of the tension levels, which will be nice.
I'll tell you what was funny.
You're going to have to keep a poker face, stay professional in the press box because I've seen people in press boxes before celebrate goals and don't want to be that guy.
I'll tell you what was funny, Adam, was at the weekend at Wildstone. I spotted Adam in that. Is it a press box? I don't want to be rude, but it was
press area.
And I went over to Adam. We had a nice catch up, and I kind of forgot that you were working because whenever we bumped into each other, we bump into each other as a fan or at the Mad Squirrel, just in that capacity. And it got to about 5 minutes in the conversation. I thought you should probably be doing that instead of chewing my ear off. So
to be honest, I forget I'm working. I forget I'm working as well because it's all like mixed in with what my hobby was anyway. So yeah, like writing transfer stories late at night, finding out about players. It's kind of all what I enjoy. I'm hoping in time I don't lose sort of the love of following the club and doing that, but at the moment it's all good.
Love it. Great start. And as we said on the previous couple of episodes, all the links to Adam's work is in the description below. We retweet all the stuff on our channels at WD18 Fans. So make sure to give us a follow and give Adam a follow as well. His details are below as well. Look, it's been a busy week. One thing actually I wanted to tee up just before we get into the transfer news, which you've been covering, Adam. You have an exclusive interview on the way with someone in the Watford squad. Do you want to maybe give a little bit of a preview, a bit of insight, a teaser for what people can expect?
Yeah, so was very lucky last week to get, I think, 20 minutes or so with Kwadwo Baah at the training ground, which was really interesting. He is obviously at the moment easing back into pre-season work. He said his injury is completely fine, but because obviously there was a recurrence when he started at Bristol City in April, they're being basically ultra careful in terms of his fitness gearing up for the season. But he said he's happy at Watford, settled at Watford. Obviously, we're aware how good he was last year and that it would be natural for other clubs to, I'm sure, be having a look at him. But that doesn't seem to be on his agenda. Absolutely targeting a big season with Watford coming up. And he spoke really well. It's very interesting on his style of play, what he thinks his best position is. That was an interesting conversation because obviously he played across all of the front line last year. And yeah, also a little bit of chat about Portsmouth on Boxing Day as well, which he says he still gets messages about from the Portsmouth end every single day, and he's looking forward to playing them this year. So yeah, really interesting guy, spoke well, and most importantly, from our point of view, seems very happy at Watford.
It's a fascinating one, isn't it, Charlie? Because when I look at the squad depth and we think about the wingers that we're getting linked with on both the left and the right sides, when Baah's fit, he's a guaranteed starter, isn't he?
I think the only reason I'm kind of hesitant to say is because I feel like he'd done all of his best work off the bench, if anything. Like, there wasn't too many games when he started last season that he was as good when he came off and having that impact. And I think it must have just been like a coincidence, because I don't think it's like because the defenders are tired or anything like that. I think it's just how it all played out. But I think we saw what his ceiling could be last season, the amount of games he won for us, and just the type of player he is, who I think really, really rare in modern football, that physical winger, raw, beat a man. So he's still really young. It's so exciting to watch, and hopefully if he can stay fit for a whole season, or even not the majority of the season, I think that'd be absolutely huge for us. Before we talk about the transfer, some new guys coming in, I wanted to ask Adam, and you don't have to tell us the nuts and bolts and finer details, but could you give a bit of an insight into what it's like breaking a story for like the Observer that you've done? So, for example, like the Rajovic, like how does that kind of end up in your lap, and how do you present that, and how do you go about it?
Yeah, it's an interesting process. So basically, I'm still getting wind of stuff the same way that I always have done as a supporter. Like, you pick up on rumours. I think probably in the job I'm getting more like messages. Have you seen this? I've heard this. But then the process of actually making sure that's firmed up and like reliable enough information is obviously the next step. So that's generally through trying to have a decent relationship with the club, checking information out with them, and then picking up as much detail as possible that kind of adds extra context from what's already out there. It's quite often, we saw last night Fabrizio Romano tweeted about the lad coming in from Bayern, but then hopefully my role will be to try and add extra information and extra context on top of that to understand how it's all playing out. So that's kind of how I see the job as well. I think the Rajovic story was possibly my favourite so far, just because it kind of came from nowhere and it had that real shock factor when I put it live, because I think that the fee is obviously a good one and little bit of a surprise. I also had loads of Legia Warsaw journalists messaging me how it's impossible and they don't have any money, and then the next day apologising because it is actually happening. So that was nice. That was a fun one.
We need Jacob. We need like Fabrizio's got Here We Go and the Ornstein Bomber. We need one for Adam. Drury drop or something like that.
Oh, that's really strong. That's really strong. I might have to go and chat to GPT. Yeah, Drury drop. What's the equivalent? Do you know what? You've teed up really, really nicely there, Adam. On do you know what? Let's start with the big news that came out yesterday, and that was around Nestory Irankunda. Now, this has been one that just, again, similar to Rajovic, actually, did come out of nowhere a little bit. What do you know about him from the early signs? Because he's plays for Bayern Munich. He's an Australian international. He's 19 years old. Started at Adelaide United, then was picked up by Bayern. He's been out on loan at Grasshoppers last season, I think. And I have to admit, I haven't watched a lot of him live, but I spoke to a mate of mine who's an Aussie fan, and they're really, really excited about the prospect of him. And we've got a bit of insight from an Aussie Watford fan in just a second. But from your understanding, what do you know about Nestory Irankunda?
Until about 16 or 17 hours ago, absolutely nothing. But having looked into him a little bit more, he seems like someone with... It obviously is a strategy of the club this summer to bring in young attackers with lots of potential. And that's been something the club have done for years, finding these gems and selling them on for millions of pounds in the future. And I'm guessing that will be the aim again here. He seems to have really good raw attributes, so lots of pace, absolutely whacks it. If you've seen the compilations of his goals, like his ball striking's unreal. So it seems like that's the very least of what we'll get from him, and lots of pace. And obviously a player who Bayern saw as someone they wanted to get in when he was very young because of his potential. So I get the impression I don't know if opportunistic is the right word, but obviously the Diallo deal from Metz has sort of been talked about as the one they want to do. And that's still one they want to do. This isn't instead of that. So whether this one's come up as a bit of an opportunity and he's a player they like, I think that's possible. But yeah, looks like a really exciting signing. And I think all of the forward players we have, the wide players and centre forwards, are going to be aged 22 or under. So it's obviously a clear strategy to have lots of these young guys, all of whom can have good spells throughout the season. They probably won't all be mega consistent, but lots of energy, all on the way up in their careers, which I think is kind of an exciting thing.
Why do you think we've gone with that strategy, Charlie? Before we get on to Irankunda as a player, because I know you're excited by him, and I said in our last episode that I like seeing you excited about Watford, and you said you're not excited in this transfer window, but I could tell there was a slight shift yesterday. Before I get into that, why are Watford trying to go with this strategy, as Adam said, of young, intense, energetic, attacking young players out wide?
I presume, and Adam will be able to tell us more, but I'm hoping it's kind of something to do with how the manager plays and that work rate and that intensity that we've seen and he tries to play. I mean, one thing that I've seen from Irankunda and Diallo is the work rate off the ball and tracking back, which is obviously not something that would kind of be on the top line of what you think about these exciting attacking players. So, like lining those up with Rocco Vata, we've still got Georgie. Is it Mama, who we've already got, Kwadwo Baah as well, and then they're only the attacking players. So, like Adam said, really, really exciting. This lad is like, he literally did burst on the scene in Australia when he was 15 years old, scoring goals, and not just normal goals, like scoring free kicks, last minute winners. He's got a classic Lualua flip celebration, which would be very nice to watch in front of the rookery. And his fires are absolutely massive. They're like tree trunks. He's an absolute unit, like gets past people with ease. I think the interesting thing about him is his position. He's played most of his career kind of on the right side, similar to Kwadwo Baah. So where's he going to fit in? I think there could be a lot of kind of rotations, like Adam said, moving people around. It's going to be like the Hunger Games for those wingers, but really raw, really exciting. I think one thing to flag, maybe his loan spell at Grasshopper wasn't as... I think he had 16 starts, scored 3 goals and 1 assist. So that change of environment might have kind of took some time for adjusting. But for that fee, for a player that Bayern have gone and got, I think it's really exciting, and it's got a lot more pros and cons for me.
Adam, from what you understand, with this deal, there's been a lot of discussion about a sell-on, because initially it was going to be a loan. I think when Fabrizio Romano out of nowhere broke it yesterday, then we had a bit more news. I think Luca Bendoni had put some news out about Watford actually buying him permanently, and then we're seeing Fabrizio say it's a €4 million fee, and then there's a 50% sell-on. So, from what you understand at this point, what is the correct details for this one?
Yeah, I need to be sort of check out what the 100% final details are. I think, as I understand it, they're still finalising it today. They're hoping to get it completely sorted today. I think the sell-on, there will be a sell-on in there, because, to be honest, it's a really good fee for a player with this potential and how exciting he is. So the trade-off with Bayern has to be there at some stage. They only bought him, I think they did the deal to Bayern the season before last, but he only arrived last summer, so he's only been there a year. So for them to sell him so quickly, there obviously has to be a sweetener in the deal for them. So I think there will be a sell-on for that reason. There's been some chat of maybe being able to buy some of the sell-on in time as well. So whether it's just a straight 50% or whatever the percentage agreed is, maybe it could change in time. But need to check out all those details. But yeah, I think Charlie's right in terms of the versatility of all of those forward players. Like, don't want to give too much away from what Baah said, but he quite fancies playing on the left as well. So all of them are right and left, can play on the right and the left-hand side. Vata probably is the one who's most suited on the left. And actually, he's a good example of what you talked about in terms of work rate and intensity as well, because his work rate, I think, really stood out in both of the first 2 games so far. The number of minutes he's played and the shift he's put in. It could be very competitive to try and get a spot on one of those flanks this season.
But I think that's a great thing, right? I think that's a really, really good thing, because I feel like there's been Watford teams in the past where it comes around to 2 p.m. on a Saturday and you kind of nailed on who's going to start. There's no real competition for places. for me, I think of the best Watford teams in recent times. You felt there were two decent players in each position, and the fact that we've got so many, and we'll get into it in terms of the squad depth for this Watford team. On Irankunda, we spoke to Adam, who's a long time, not Adam Drury, the Australian Adam, who's a long time subscriber of WD18. He sent us his thoughts. He was super excited about it. He commented on our post on Instagram, so we've got him to send in a video, and this is what he had to say.
Hey Hornets fans, it's Adam here. I'm Australian, as you can tell, and I'm a huge fan of Nestory Irankunda, Watford's potential new signing. I discovered him by accident whilst watching Australia's under-17 game in 2022 versus Northern Mariana Islands. Nestory Irankunda scored 5 goals that day, and I texted my best mate. I'm like, this boy is going to be special, and he has been. He broke into the Adelaide United team in 2022, which is the top Division A league. And honestly, from that point, I think everyone in Australia, but everyone sort of worldwide, started to regard him as a wonder kid or a huge talent. And this has placed a lot of pressure on Nestory, which is, you can sort of tell in his, he's been sort of in and out of the Australian outfit, pulling out a few times, and then, there were questions of whether he was going to represent Australia. He ended up representing, I think he's played 5 games for Australia, in World Cup qualifications and such. He is a very top signing for Watford if we can get a hold of him. If the transfer rumours are true, he could pay dividends, not only with a small fee. I think it was 4 or 3 million with a 50% sell on or something like that. I'm not too sure of the specifics. But honestly, no matter what fee you can pay for Irankunda, I wholeheartedly believe it's worth it. He's showed time and time again to be an explosive player, a game breaker. He comes on. There's questions of his fitness. Obviously, he's a very agile, very fast player. He has sort of the type of skill that we seek from Kwadwo Baah on the right-hand side. He is an incredibly skilled dribbler. He likes running at teams. He'll run at your defence all day, and it's a very scary prospect for championship defenders when they're going to come up against him. But yes, Watford, it would be a huge coup for Watford to get Irankunda. He's played in Bundesliga 2 for Bayern Munich, and he went on loan. It was a sort of failed loan. But he showed it wasn't really the best sort of position and atmosphere for him to be in. But he's a really good lad. He has a lot to give. His shots are so powerful. I'm sure there's highlights galore that you can find of Irankunda's long shots and free kicks and stuff. Very powerful shot, and he's such an explosive player. He really could, this is a really good signing from the Pozzos. As good as questionable as they have been. It would be a huge signing and for a promotion push if that's what we're aiming for. So watch this space. He's going to be everyone's favourite player. He's my favourite player. I couldn't believe my eyes when I saw the news, and a very passionate fan of Irankunda and Watford. Thank you for having me on the channel. Come on, you Horns.
What a man. I hope he's on commission, by the way. He should be his agent from that chat. But look, if you think of it from Irankunda's perspective as well, firstly, thanks to Adam for sending that. It was really good insight, and also the excitement and the passion's good to see. But number 2, if he's moving to London, he's joining an English club, first team football pretty much guaranteed, or as you guys say, with the amount of games this season, 46 in the Championship, and depending how far we go in Carabao and the FA Cup. So look, it's an exciting one, and I can't remember the last time, guys, unless you could think one off the top of your head, where Watford fans are really excited by the idea of Watford going out and buying a player with as much potential as this guy, Charlie.
Not sure. I'm still having a bit of fear about. Do you remember our friend Henrik Ajarejo? That didn't go too well, did it?
I thought it was Henrik Arouge.
Arouge. See,
I'd go Arouge,
yeah.
Remember the name?
Was that his brother?
Just look, like last bit on Irankunda. Like Adam, you've been to both games in pre-season. I think you spoke to the new head coach. Tell us what you think. How you think Watford are going to play next season, and where do you think Irankunda will fit into that?
Yeah, well, I wrote it in a piece yesterday. I mean, the shape has generally been 4-3-3 with an advanced midfielder almost playing up next to the centre forward and two wide players so far. I mean, the most eye-catching thing to me has actually been in midfield, where there's so much rotation, and I don't think you could claim that Kjerrumgaard or Loser have been pigeonholed as a 6 or an 8 or a 10 or whatever in these two games. They're both up and down, and seem to have the intelligence to look out for each other and fill in when one goes. And Petzolano's talked about that rotation and how he wants to use positional rotation to confuse opposition. So that's something we're definitely going to see. I mean, I'd say Vata, who's played on the left in both games, has been probably more conventional in terms of what we've been used to seeing from him last season. So I think the wide players and the fullbacks, when they get forward, will be used to play wide and stretch the game. And then you've got those that fluid midfield. We've not really seen. I mean, on the right, I think the two starters have been Messiah Edwards on Tuesday and then Ince on Saturday. So probably not the player who we would expect to start when the league gets underway. So it's probably more difficult to say on that side. But certainly from Vata, it's been sort of classic what we saw from him last year, really.
Charlie, do you mind bringing up the squad depth chart? I think it might be quite a good time to do it. As we mentioned, the amount of not only signings in attacking areas, but the amount of options that Watford had, because we're going to get on to, and Adam, please correct me if I'm wrong, Luca Kjerrumgaard?
Kjerrumgaard.
Kjerrumgaard, okay, cool. That I wasn't
That's
too
what
far
I'm currently at, but I'm not certain.
So this is the setup at the minute. So for people listening on audio, Charlie's brought up the squad depth chart for Watford at the minute. And you look at, let's take those wide areas, 3 in each position, but also there's flexibility for Irankunda to go onto the left, Mama to go onto the left, as Adam said, Baah, who's keen to also play on the left-hand side. And then obviously on the other side, I'd imagine Diallo would be able to play. But when you look at that, Charlie, it does feel like there's a balance on paper to what's being built here, would be my takeaway. Now, the key thing for me is probably the right-back situation, which feels like an area that a lot of fans have mentioned. But for you, when you look at that, what's sort of your main takeaways?
When I'm looking at the battle for the wide positions, you fear for Mr. Ince, you really do. It looks vibesy. Like I like the look of it. It's interesting what Adam's saying about that dynamic between Luzer and Kjerrumgaard, which we haven't seen yet. I think we haven't spoke about Georgie at all. Whether we know if we think he's going to stay or not. There's also still talk about Luzer. So I think those two are going to have a big part to play because they've already got that championship experience. And that's one of the concerns that we've had with this Watford strategy, that we're buying so much youth and we're worried about having a lack of experience. I'm sure the Pozzos, and I remember there was a statement, I think at the end of last season, was these players have played in the championship now for 1 or 2 years. They've got the experience. So I think the likes of Luzer, Chapfadazzi, Sissoko, even Kayembe, Tom Dele-Bashiru, like they're going to be really important at some stage. It looks really good to me. Like I really, really like it at the moment. I love Abankwah. Bola looks like a smart signing. Wiley's still yet to be confirmed, but how good was he at the back end last season? Selvik as well. So yeah, for me, it looks good on paper. It's going to be interesting to see how different this is until the start of the season. And obviously, like Diallo's not 100% done yet. We can ask Adam about him in a bit. But Jacob, what are your thoughts? And is there any spots that you think we need to strengthen? It feels like we've done a lot of business early.
So. Business early, yeah. I think another centre back in would be good for me because I do think I think Tikvich will probably move on if I was to guess. I think there's always the option of Porteous moving on. I do think the right back situation is an interesting one because I think what maybe some people are forgetting is that Abankwah can play as a right back, and that would mean we've got 4 in that position, and you've got pretty much every type of right back. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if Ferreira moved on or
one of the right starting in the last video.
I know. But I mean, Adam might know a little bit more. I mean, look, if it was down to me, I'd keep him. But I'd imagine you don't need 3 natural right backs if you've got Abankwah as well. But what I will also say is, I think when you look at it on paper, Watford can move to a back 3 if needed, which I think is always a good option to have, which we saw a couple of times last season. But it does seem that 4-3-3 or 4-2-3-1 is probably a better reflection of the formation. It looks good on paper. Adam, when you see it, and I don't know whether we ask you from a journalistic point of view or a fan point of view, or a bit of both, as someone who lives and breathes it now, how do you feel about this balance, this Watford team and the squad depth?
I think it's looking good. I mean, I look at areas like left back. Have you got Baah on there?
Yeah, I've put him like, I've heard he as part of a back three, so I'll put him in there.
Yeah. Well, I think Watford have won promotion out of the Championship before with weaker left back departments than we're going to have this year. So that straight away seems to me like a statement of intent. Like there's proper depth and quality in that position, which is quite a specialist position. It's one we've not always had the perfect player for. I remember before Adam Messina came into the team during the last promotion season, we just didn't really have a left back. Like Kiko was playing there and one or two others. Whereas this year, that I think Wiley and Baah are going to be competing for that spot and can rotate, and that should be pretty strong.
Captain James.
James Morris's captain was not on my bingo list for pre-season, I'll be honest.
He's still absolutely fully involved. Remember one lung-busting defensive run he made at Boreham Wood, which got Pet Solano applauding. So right back's interesting. Like Ferreira is definitely still around. He's not been playing in the game so far, so I'm not entirely sure what's happening. There must be a reason he's not involved in the games, but it's not like he's out the picture, not there, not involved. I'm pretty sure he's training, and he's kind of involved. So there is still the option to work him into things if that's the way it goes. And then you're right, Abankwah and Kevin can both play right back. They do want another centre back, so whether a centre back comes in and that frees up Abankwah and Kevin to play right back even more. And then I think left back's looking good. I think Duomo is another one worth mentioning in midfield. We talked about Luza and Kyprianou, but Duomo was, I thought, it was the second half of a quite a slow pre-season game in the end on Saturday. But I thought he was easily the best player on the pitch in the second half of that game. Some lovely touches, and we saw enough last year to believe he's definitely got something to offer moving forward. So it wouldn't surprise me if he established himself and worked his way in as well. And then it's Georgie's position as well. Again, like the reason he's not been involved is nothing to do with leaving. It's working back up to full fitness after the injury he had at the end of last year. He's an awkward one because I remember last season us talking about him playing as the 10, and then he did play as the 10 and it just didn't quite work. Like the angles weren't quite right. He quite often does his best work with a fullback outside him, which is why I think he was so good in that inside 10 position when it was 3-4-2-1. So quite what his best position is in this team, I'm not sure, but I think they'll want to go with the fast, dynamic runners from wide on both sides. That seems to be what they're building towards, which would mean Georgie probably competing to play in midfield, and then he could play on the left where necessary. But yeah, you're right. I mean, there's loads of options, loads of depth. So yeah, it's looking good.
And probably some moving parts to come. I think you'll still be busy, Adam, going up to the Charlton away on the first day of the season. Yeah. I was just on that midfield. One to mention, I think, is Kiembe. That might be one just to look out for over this summer. I don't know why he's not been more involved as he has in pre-season, but that might be.
He actually was injured. I realised afterwards on Saturday he had an injury that he got at Boreham Wood, which is why he didn't play on Saturday. Had a calf injury.
Got it.
So yeah, I think he did play in that where Sissoko's been starting in that sort of advanced midfield position at Boreham Wood. But yeah, for whatever reason, doesn't feel like he's kind of front and centre at the moment.
No, it's a weird one. Ever since that clip came out by the club saying he was late, did Nani explicitly? No, he didn't. He didn't explicitly say it, but we kind of Luon's tweeted that it was Kiembe anyway. Long story short, be interesting one to follow with Kiembe because I actually think he's a really useful player to have in the squad. Just going back to the centre back situation, there was a rumour about Xavier Mbuyama. That Watford are interested alongside Southampton, but also Ghent and Rangers are also in for the centre-back. Apparently around a £500,000 price tag, according to Fabrizio Romano. So that's just one to keep an eye on. But I guess a better question would be, Charlie, what sort of centre-back should Watford be going out for? Because I think we can all agree that we need another one. But what sort of player do we want? And I'll throw it over to Adam in terms of what would fit Pezzolano's style.
I think off the top of my head, a left-footed one would be quite nice. Have we got a left-foot? Like, Caben's not left-footed, is he? So just for that balance, don't get a left-footed one if they're not good enough, obviously. But I think that's what I've heard about Bola, if we want to play kind of with a back three. So, yeah, to bring a bit of balance, that would be nice to have. But like the lad you mentioned there seems like exactly the profile that the Pozzos would go for. Like, he was at the Chelsea Academy, wasn't he? He's gone away. His contract's going down, I think, so you can get him at a cheaper price. He's done really well for the team in Netherlands. Like, there's quite a few people going for him, so I don't know about him particularly. But I don't know. I'm just so high on the bank where I thought Pollock was really, really good. I don't want people to forget about him, and I think he brings a lot of leadership. Although he's really young, he's still got the shirt for me. So I don't know. Banqua's got the pace. Pollock's got the kind of the physicality and the aerial dominance. Caben maybe a bit of both. So I don't know. It's whatever's right. But if we can get someone left-footed for a bit more balance and help with whatever build-up Pezzolano wants to do, that'd be good.
What's been your main takeaways sort of so far, Adam? I know you mentioned Pezzolano in the system, but has there been anything so far in pre-season from watching the games and researching, really going in depth on him, that you've noticed there's sort of patterns in these early stages with him and the way he wants to play?
Yeah, I think definitely I would have said again that rotation in terms of positions. I mean, at Boreham Wood, Jeremy Ngakia honestly lined up on the left side of the centre of midfield for the first 10 minutes of the game and threw me right off. And I was thinking, here we go. What funkiness has he got in store for us here? And then just as I wrote it on the blog, he went over to right back and played down the right for the rest of the half. So whether that was just something they were trying out for a few minutes, or I just overanalyzed something, which, he just ended up there for whatever reason. But it does seem like that rotation and confusing opposition with the positions is definitely going to be a big feature. And just the intensity. I mean, intensity is a buzzword that everyone's talking about a lot. It does sound like they've trained extremely hard. They kind of came into the Wimbledon game half cooked, basically. Not half cooked, but knackered from training all week. So it's all gearing up really to be ready for the start of the season rather than ready for these games. But they have run really hard. They've won the ball back high up the pitch. Even on Saturday when it was tough, I think Loser won the ball back about 30 yards out to set up the goal. And so I think with the defenders, we're going to want quick defenders who can play high up the pitch and get running backwards where needed. But at the same time, he's talked about adjusting to opposition and needing to be adaptable. So Charlton on the opening day, you would expect it's going to be lots of set pieces, lots of crosses, and he'll need defenders who can deal with that as well. But the basic idea, I think, will be to try and play high up, keep the ball in their half, and play with lots of energy closer to our goal than their goal. Pollock's not only a massive player, but massive part of the changing room, like a real leader. I think more of a vocal leader than Sissoko is. I think Sissoko is a sort of set by example captain, but Pollock, I think, talks the most out of anybody in the squad. So, no chance of him being forgotten. Very much a key part of the team. And you've got to remember, Kevin's barely sort of managed 2 or 3 games in a row so far for us with injury issues and suspension when he got sent off at Portsmouth. So we're going to need this. We're going to need the depth.
It's a really interesting one on the communication. It was actually one of my big takeaways from the weekend, Adam. I don't know if you thought the same. I thought we were extremely quiet. Just being as close as we were, obviously we're at Wealdstone. If you've been, you're right next to the game. I mean, you're pretty much on the pitch in terms of especially when you're next to the dugout. I did see Gianluca Nani in the dugout in the second half, which I did enjoy, just next to it. Valon Brahmi there as well, who's been knocking about. But yeah, one of the big things I noticed was there was a lot of good signs for Watford, but I did notice we were quite quiet as a team. And you mentioned Pollock being that vocal leader. Sissoko isn't that. Selvic's not the loudest of keepers from what I've seen so far. And it's just something I wanted to raise because I feel like when you're in that environment, you probably don't pick up on that when you're at Vicarage Road and everyone's singing, everyone's cheering. But just one thing to raise, I thought, because you kind of need your senior players to maybe be a bit more vocal for me anyway.
Maybe they're too tired to shout. They had such a hard week.
Genuinely might be a thing. Maybe might
it
be
was.
a thing.
It was very, very hot and tiring on Saturday, even sitting in
True.
the shade. So.
True.
I think Baxter is a decent communicator. I've heard him barking out instructions quite a lot. Even when he came on Saturday, he gave someone a right rollicking in the last few minutes. Kjerrumgaard as well is definitely an interesting one in terms of leadership, because I think he's another one who maybe isn't a shouter, although he might grow into that, but definitely seems to be almost a coach's lieutenant on the pitch, like understands how we're going to play. I think maybe thinks quite deeply about the setup and the approach, and is able to actually talk to players I see him quite often having a little word with another player, like, hand gestures and telling them where to be. And Pet Solano talks about how with that rotation, he needs his midfielders to be, it's not just being able to rotate, but it's knowing when to do it, why you're doing it, where to be. And that intelligence is going to be really important. So I think Kjerrumgaard could be, we will see how his actual level translates to the Championship, but don't really see why it wouldn't. But definitely in terms of carrying out the approach, carrying out the game plan or whatever, I think he could be really important.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Before we get back onto the transfer rumours, just to wrap up today's episode, a couple of quick fire bits. So we've got another friendly right against Arsenal behind closed doors, I want to say.
Yeah, I don't think I'll be at that one, but it's because behind closed doors means behind closed doors.
Got you.
But yeah, I think it's Arsenal on Saturday, and then Leyton Orient the week after is the next one with everyone back in.
Great
which
stuff.
is about a 20-minute walk from where I live, so that's a jackpot for me. I was gutted they weren't promoted, and then first pre-season friendly announcement was there, so yeah, perfect.
The Drury derby. And another couple of bits of news. I know you wanted to talk about Duomo, Charlie, again, just on the interview he did with the club, this sort of walk and talk style that's come in.
Yeah.
Which I did feel, you guys mentioned how hot it was. I did feel sorry for him because I thought he must be absolutely boiling doing this after running around. But any takeaways from that brief chat with him? Because it's a big season for him, I guess, after kind of being in the picture last season.
Main takeaway was his accent. He seems to really have got the British or the London, not Cockney, but
twang.
I don't know. He just sounds like he's from London. So yeah, it was interesting. Did you speak to him, Adam?
Yeah. His English is top notch. Just speaks perfect English. He's interesting actually. I hadn't come across him before. I don't think we've heard too much from him, but spoke really well, very confident. His main concern, I think, is making sure he stays fit, because he had that injury. I think he got injured at Fulham and it kept him out for a couple of months. And even when he came back at the end of last year, I remember he had loads of strapping around his thigh for those last few games, which I assume that was just to look after it rather than it wasn't actually, he hadn't got fit. But he wants to stay fit and then crack on from there. But talked about his long-term future being at Watford as well. Seems really happy. So I think he's an exciting player. He could be one who we're talking about in a year being the next one, I think. But again, it's competitive to get a position in midfield.
Yeah, absolutely. Another man who's joined the competition out wide as well is Othmane Mama. Now, interesting one, because when he came in, Charlie, we jumped on a stream. I think it was our last episode actually, and I think I said that I don't really buy this idea that he is a project player, because I feel like it was a great opportunity for the club to invest in a young player. The fee, right, Adam, was pretty good in the end. Thought it was like 300,000.
Yeah, very less than 300,000, I was told.
Amazing, right? So you've got an 18-year-old or 19-year-old guy from Montpellier. He's coming to the team. And I likened it to when Duomo signed, where this project had been used, but actually he was a bit more involved than probably we all expected. That's another option out wide. I know that's probably the theme of this stream. Might have to change the title, but it's another option out wide, Charlie. Were you surprised at this sort of narrative change from project to, after a few training sessions, he's going to be in the first team picture?
Yeah, but I still think that could change maybe towards the end of the window. I just think if we have got Baah, Vata, if Diallo does come in, Irankunda as well, we don't want players sitting on the bench getting no game time at all. And if we've got two lads sitting on the bench ready to come on, look, we know about injuries. Hopefully we can have a better fitness record than I think last season, because I think last season we were down to our bare bones. It seems like that's happened last couple of seasons. But Well, Adam, you could tell more details about the report. Is it that his just first couple of training sessions, he just looked really exciting and they kind of changed plans?
I think what happened was he was definitely an opportunistic one, where it wasn't necessarily part of the squad building for this season. Montpellier got relegated and I think are in a bit of a mess. And they were aware of him as a talented guy and he became available for the fee that I mentioned. And so they went for it. And so when he arrived, it was kind of the plan was to have a look at him, see how it goes, potentially loan him out. I think a loan was definitely the initial thinking. And then, yeah, he's trained for a few days and they're really impressed. Seems to have made a good, decent impression as a person as well, to the point now that they're thinking we're going to try and integrate him into the first team squad rather than treat him as that opportunistic developmental player who we'll see how it goes with. I think he's surprised them in terms of how ready he looks and up to the standard he looks. So a bit of a bonus one, I think. But as you say, there are lots of players and you never know how things work themselves out right at the end of the window when the season's actually started and we see how it's looking. But yeah, for now, he's considered more than a project player.
For sure. One of the, I don't know if you guys like this, but whenever there's a bit of club content, I always analyse it in the smallest detail. And one of the things I did pick up from the signing day was how Sissoko went and met him and spoke to him. And I think it can't be underestimated with a player like Sissoko, how important, particularly for someone like Othmane Mama, who's come in a new country, speaks French. Loser was next to him when he was doing his medical and stuff. And I think those sort of guys for him are absolutely perfect. So when we talk about moving players on, and one point you really raised, well, Adam, was about how Pollock is an influential voice in the dressing room. That sort of thing, obviously, we don't see day to day. Obviously, Adam, you might see a little bit more than us guys, but you do forget that actually keeping that dynamic in the dressing room, and you think of the best Watford teams, again, to bring it back round, had a really good camaraderie. And obviously, Troy was leading that, and Gomez, if you think of that 2014-15 season, you had some key figures, a Ben Watson example, etc. You need those experienced heads, I think. And as you say, Charlie, a lot of these guys have played a lot of football, actually, for their age. Although the average age of the squad is quite young, a lot of them are pretty experienced. So, look, that's my sort of excitement coming through ahead of this season. One man I'm going to ask, should we be excited about, is Luca Kjerrumgaard. And I'm going to get your piece up here, Adam, from the Watford Observer. So Luca Kjerrumgaard set for medical at Watford, if that sounds ringing, there it is. I love the way I'm reading your article to you, Adam, but Kjerrumgaard will undergo medical at Watford today ahead of his proposed move from OB in Denmark. That was obviously came out yesterday. The Watford Observer understands that the Hornets have beaten off interest from top European clubs, including Serie A champions Napoli and Portuguese giants Porto, to land Kjerrumgaard, 22 years old. And that kind of leads nicely on to the visa situation, which there was an unbelievable thread from GBE Expert Hub on how Watford have managed to get around that with Selvik, with Kjerrumgaard. They're having a bit of trouble with Diallo because he hasn't been in a league and matchday squad, I want to say, or it's along those lines anyway. But Adam, what do you know about Luca Kjerrumgaard from the early stages?
Well, this is the signing that they are definitely most excited about, like most enthusiastic about from what I've heard. They think it's a massive coup to have got him. There was genuine interest from those top clubs. I'm not saying he'd have walked into Napoli and kicked Lukaku out the first 11, but they wanted to sign him and have him there because they see him as a top level prospect. But I think Watford's record with players like Joao Pedro, Yasser Asprilla, whoever else that we've sold over the last few years is quite appealing to talented young players who see Watford as a destination where they know that there's a track record of kicking on your career from there. And yeah, I think he was very highly sought after. So they view him as the centre forward that they wanted to lead the line this season. And hopefully that translates. I know people will talk about the level he's played at, and I think last season was the first time he really took off in terms of his goal record, scored 22 goals in the Danish second tier. And probably the timing of him coming in the week Rajovic leaves and them both being tall Danish forwards leads people to certain conclusions. But from what I've heard and what I've seen and watched, I I think Kjerrumgaard will have a fair amount more going for him in terms of his all-round game, and then hopefully bring that same ability in the box. So sounds like a really exciting signing, and translating to the Championship is going to be the main question mark, but players translate from other levels all the time. That's the job of the recruitment team to work out who's going to fit, and yeah, they're very excited by him.
That's the main question, Charlie. From what you know, what's he like as a player? Have you been on Wisecout, by the way, to watch him?
Yeah. I think that Saturday morning, was it? A little Wisecout session, but yeah, just a modern day striker. Does it all in terms of that hold up play, that kind of occupying all of a defence, moving them around, bringing people into play. I think his movement's really good. The amount of time you see him kind of drop deep, which the way we want to play, and kind of wingers going off him, creating space, drawing defenders out. And then in the box, he looks like he's got all kind of finishes in his bag, whether it's a 2-yard tap in, being in the right place at the right time, lovely chip finishes when he's one-on-one, even kind of adjusting that I tweeted a lovely goal he scored where it was kind of behind him and he used the pace of the ball to guide it into the far corner. He just looks like that modern day striker. And yeah, that doubt that you have when he's only playing in the Danish second tier and you can see bouncy castles in the background and stuff like that. That is a big fear, especially as we had Rajovic. And I think, like I said, it's that physicality and that pressing that he looks like he can do as well. I can't wait to see him in the flesh to see. I think we'll know instantly when he plays, like if he is at the level. But on paper at 22, it isn't the experienced player that we want. And when you look at our front line with Semedo and Doumbia, it's going to be fascinating to see who's got the shirt. But by hearing what Adam's just saying there about he was their number one target and the fact that we got him, that's something that I haven't heard the club say in ages. So yeah, he one who I think I tweeted. He aroused me. He excited me. He got me a bit more excited. So yeah, hopefully he can hit the ground running. He can be our next Matti Vidra. Yeah, I'm excited to see him play really, and hopefully that gets confirmed and we can see him in some preseason friendly, and he can hit the ground running.
July 15th in Charlie Zazzera is aroused by Watford's transfer activity. Remember the day, we're cooking. Do you know what? I got a message from James from the Watford Away, Charlie, who said, let Charlie know we're cooking.
Yeah, I had a text from a commentary mate saying, what are Watford cooking? And that leads me on to last question maybe for Adam. Papa Diallo, what's the latest?
Well, I think there was a lot of noise over the weekend about obviously this Norwich situation. I mean, from what I've heard, and it's been quite consistent, the club they still would like to sign him, and they're confident he's going to sign for Watford, and that message has never really changed. So from my perspective, despite all the noise, that's the situation. I think there might be, obviously you mentioned the thread about visas and work permits that went out yesterday. I'm hoping to provide a bit more clarity on all of that at some stage, just kind of working it all out. But I think they said about him that he might need to appear in a matchday squad for Metz before he qualifies for GBE, which is basically the standard way of qualifying for non-UK players. So that possibly could be the hold-up. And there's a little bit to work out in that department in terms of slots and stuff. But yeah, my impression is that it hasn't really changed since it was first reported a week or two ago that they're confident they'll sign him and they want to sign him. But clearly the number of attacking players coming in already gives them a little bit of wiggle room if it doesn't happen. And they'll have other targets in the transfer market if it doesn't. But I think they're still in for him.
A fascinating summer following Watford. Not a bad time to be covering the club as well. Adam, an absolute pleasure to have you on today, and we'd love to get you on more when you have a bit of spare time, because I know you're a very busy man at the minute with everything going on. But I hope you enjoyed it. Was it different from when you did it as a out and out fan? Not that you're not a fan, but you know what I mean. You've got the more journalistic hat on.
Yeah, nice to be able to talk a little bit more with a little bit more insight probably than in the past. But yeah, really enjoyed it, and we'll be very happy to keep jumping on.
Top man. Make sure to check out Adam's work, not only on the Watford Observer, but on his socials, which is Adam
_ Drury 1.
Perfect. We'll leave the link and all the ats in the description below. Charlie, any final words?
No, get following, subscribe to Watford Observer.
Subscribe as well.
Get the link in there. Get your notifications on Adam's tweet for the Drury drops. And
The Drury drops. Wow, yes. I love it.
Surely there can't be any more signings after this. Who knows?
Surely not another one. Thanks so much, guys, for watching and listening. If you did enjoy, please do leave a like on the video. Subscribe to WD18 and the Watford Observer. Comment down below your thoughts, and we will see you in the next one. Take care, guys, and up the audits. You want.